They came with gifts, the voice said. They came with songs and treaties and promises. The plaza filled with light and color. Flags from 100 systems hung like a forest. Amina stood at the edge and watched. She listened with more than her ears. She listened with the part of her that learned languages like people learn to breathe. In the center of the plaza, a small stage rose. Ambassador Lysar moved on the stage like glass moved by wind. He was taller than most. His skin shivered with colors when he spoke. The translator on his throat hummed and turned those colors into a sound that the others could understand. The Andari Council called it elegant. Humans called it foreign. But Amina understood enough to see the meaning in his hands. The summit was meant to be a first meeting. Leaders came to speak. Children came to watch. People wanted a story to tell their grandchildren. Humans had come too. They walked, heads high, hands not empty. They wore their songs on their sleeves and their history in the set of their shoulders. Captain Mara Reyes stood near the human flag. She did not look like a soldier. She looked like a person who had been made of sharp choices. Her hair was cut close. Her jaw held the tired lines of command. For days the cameras had fed the plaza to billions. Families who never left their moons watched. Traders paused ships for the live broadcast. The summit promised a new map. For many, it was a hope. The first 15 seconds of the live feed would show peace. The first 15 seconds would show Ambassador Lysar bow and the human delegate hand him a woven cloak. In the first 15 seconds, the rules would hold. Amina had a different promise. She promised herself she would listen. She had studied the Andari speech patterns in the quiet hours. She had sat with old recordings of markets, of rain on the glass of a ship hull, and she had taught herself to fill gaps the machine translators missed. She loved the sound of languages like other people loved the feel of warm bread. She loved the way meanings nest inside small hard words. She did not hear the sound everyone else called the click. She felt it. It slid through the skin of the plaza like a note that did not belong. People froze. Drones blinked in the sky. Lights that had been steady for hours went cold for a beat. From above, where the stars were supposed to be steady and open, something moved. For a long moment nothing showed. Then the dark made shape. A shadow uncurled like the wing of a sleeping thing. The sensors screamed in data that only some could see. The plaza saw the shadow first and then the shape. The human battleship had been hidden. It was not in the map the council had agreed on. It was not a flag anyone had expected. When it appeared, it filled the sky. The ship did not try to be elegant. It made itself big. It was black metal in a place of light. Its edge cut the stars. It had a name in the histories older humans carried in their bones, but in the plaza it had no name. It was only a silhouette that ate the light. Amina saw faces change. The Andari whose skin had shivered pale. Children cried. The markets that had hummed with soft commerce now hummed with a new frequency. Captain Mara watched too. She watched like someone who knew what a ship could mean. She watched like someone who had sat with the decision to keep something hidden. The human battleship was not a lie. It was a choice. It had been made by someone who wanted safety and control. It had been made by people who had seen enough darkness to think that hiding sometimes meant survival. But the choice to reveal it did not come alone. When the ship declared itself present, the plaza declared a new truth. Weapons aligned. Shields rose. An old custom of many species moved: show your teeth and see if the other still smiles. The Andari admiral, who had never liked surprises, barked orders. 1,000 small things began to change. The summit that had been about words showed the first notes of a different song, one with metal strings and hard sound. Amina had studied how fear moves between bodies. It jumps like cold. It passes hands like rumors. She felt it then. It took the shape of a single small sound the humans called a roar. The human ship answered with a low tone from deep inside its hull. Cameras caught the tone and the way the light seemed to slide along the ship's armor like water. No translator could make those tones kind. They were raw. They held menace. They held protection. They held the will of a species that had learned to survive by making noise and standing large. In history books those tones could be words like warning or defense. In the plaza they were only an arrival. People raised their hands. Some prayed. Some ran. The Andari who had once been calm placed a palm to his chest. His mandibles tightened. Ambassador Lysar stopped speaking. The translator on his throat went mute. Captain Mara stepped forward. She moved the way a person moves when they have decided not to wait for fate. Her boots were quiet on the metal. She did not carry a gun in her hands. She carried her face like a shield. Humans made decisions in front of others. Some saw it as bravado. Some saw it as honesty. She did not say, "We came to fight." She said, "We will not hide what we are." Her voice was low so the feed would pick it up. Her eyes told the story of miles traveled and friends lost. She said it simply. The words were not meant to charm. They were meant to make a space where something could be true. That truth did not land like a calm. It landed like a stone in water. The ripple hit the Andari Council and then the smaller ripples hit ambassadors, journalists, and traders. The plaza held its breath. A child pointed at the sky. Her finger shook. A vendor clutched a stack of papers and folded them into his chest. For a moment all the noise of the world, the music, the markets, the lights fell away. People only watched the place where the black ship cut the stars and the humans stood beneath it like a small, strange animal with teeth. Amina stepped closer to the stage. Her listening had been a private thing. Now it was public. The click that had moved through the plaza had opened a door. Nobody could close it. The summit had missed a line in the script. The cameras had not been programmed for that shadow. Ambassador Lysar moved his hand slowly. His eyes searched Captain Mara. He tried to find the intention inside the human body that had made the ship appear. The translator did not find the right sounds. But intention does not always need sound. It shows in the way fingers twitch, in the small pause before speech, in the steady look of someone who has chosen a truth. Below the ship, the air smelled of heat and old metal. People whispered the word Decloaked and some did not know what it meant until they felt the meaning in their bones. The plaza had been promised a meeting. Instead it had been given a decision. Amina thought of all the stories of first contact she had read. They were full of candles and speeches. They did not always account for the things that live in pockets of shadow. She thought of her grandmother's hands, and of lullabies. She thought of simple human songs that could be strange bridges between very different bodies. On the stage, as tensions rose like bad weather, Amina closed her eyes for a single breath. She listened to the crowd, to the ship, to the distant sound of engines. There was a sound under all of it, the sound of a world ready to change. The feed kept recording. The first part of their story would not be a quiet one. It would be the click and the shape and the questions that come when choices meet. The plaza waited to see what the humans would do now that they had made themselves seen. History would decide. The battleship hung above the plaza like a shadow carved into the sky. Its hull glistened black, broken only by the dull red glow of its engines. The plaza, once filled with cheers and music, now fell silent. Everyone was waiting. Everyone wanted to know if this was peace, or war. Amina felt her chest tighten. She was not a soldier. She was not even a diplomat. She was only a student of languages. Yet, in that moment, she felt every eye, every camera, every microphone straining to catch meaning. What would the humans say? What would the aliens do? Ambassador Lysar's colors flickered across his translucent skin. Blue, then yellow, then sharp red. He raised his hands, trying to calm the gathered crowd, but fear does not calm so easily. Behind him, Andori soldiers gripped their weapons. Their eyes, wide and glowing, never left the human battleship. Captain Mara Reyes stood firm on the stage. She did not look up at the massive ship, though its shadow covered her and every human delegate. Her jaw was set. Her eyes stayed locked on the Andori speaker. She said only one word, spoken slowly, clearly, for all to hear. Peace. The word echoed through the plaza. The translators struggled to carry it into 100 alien tongues, but the simplicity of it was not lost. Still, the word did not ease the tension. The Andori admiral barked an order, and a dozen drones rose into the air. They formed a net of weapons aimed at the Terran battleship. The humans had decloaked at the worst possible moment. To the council, it looked like betrayal. Amina felt her hands shake. She wanted to explain. She wanted to shout that not all things were what they seemed. But she was one voice among thousands. Then the sound came. It began deep inside the battleship, a low hum like thunder. The plaza shook as the ship opened its side panels. Rows of guns revealed themselves, dark and heavy. The crowd screamed. Mothers grabbed their children. Traders threw down their goods. The Andori admiral shouted again, and the drones primed their cannons. A single mistake, Amina thought. One mistake, and this will be remembered as the day humanity started a war with the galaxy. But Captain Mara did not flinch. She raised her hand, calm and steady, and tapped the communicator in her ear. For a breath, the battleship above stilled. The hum of its weapons faded. The ship's great cannons shut down. Then shields lowered. Gasps rose from the plaza. No one could believe it. A ship like that, exposed in the middle of a hostile crowd. It was madness. It was vulnerability. And yet, that was exactly what Captain Mara chose. She spoke again, her voice reaching every corner of the plaza. We will not strike first. We will not hide from you. We are here, open, and unshielded. What we want, is trust. Her words carried. Some aliens hissed. Others whispered. The Andori speaker looked unsettled. The admiral did not lower his drones. For him, trust was weakness. For Mara, it was strength. Then it happened. One of the drones, nervous and twitching, fired a warning shot. A streak of blue light slammed into a small Terran shuttle parked near the edge of the plaza. The shuttle burst into smoke and fire. Screams filled the air. Amina dropped to her knees as heat rushed over her face. She saw human delegates scatter, pulling injured bodies from the flames. Captain Mara's hand clenched. Around her, her guards looked ready to retaliate, ready to call down the full fury of the battleship. But Mara's voice cut sharp and clear. Hold. The word burned into the moment. It was not a request. It was a command. Amina forced herself to her feet. Through the smoke, she saw a figure lying on the ground, an alien diplomat from a minor system, struck by falling debris. His fragile chest rose and fell weakly. No Andori soldier moved to help him. The plaza was frozen between fear and violence. Without thinking, Amina ran forward. Her hands lifted the alien, light as glass, into her arms. The crowd gasped again. She was no warrior. She was a translator, a listener. But in that instant, she carried him like he weighed nothing, and she walked straight toward the Terran battleship's open gangway. The cameras followed her every step. Billions of eyes across the galaxy watched. She crossed into the human ship. Medical officers rushed forward, guiding her to a bed. Machines hummed. The alien diplomat was laid down, breathing weakly but alive. And there, with the lights burning and the feeds broadcasting, Amina did the only thing she could think of. She sang. It was an old Terran lullaby, a song her grandmother had sung when storms rattled the windows of their small home. The words were simple. The melody was slow. Her voice shook, but the sound carried. And in the plaza outside, silence fell. Ambassador Lysar, wounded and pale, lifted his head. His skin flickered faint blue, the color of calm. His translator buzzed, but it did not need to. He understood without words. The human girl was not showing power. She was showing care. The admiral's drones hung still. The Andari speaker lowered his staff. The crowd leaned forward, caught between fear and wonder. The battleship, still looming above, no longer looked like a weapon. It looked like a shelter. Captain Mara stood taller, her face unreadable. She knew the moment was fragile. The wrong move could break it. But Amina's song carried what no speech could. It said, "We are dangerous, yes. But we are also human. And we choose to help." Slowly, Ambassador Lysar walked to the gangway. His steps were unsteady, his hands trembling, but he entered the Terran ship. He stood beside Amina, who did not stop singing. And then, in a voice cracked and strange, Lysar tried to hum along. The sound was rough. The pitch was wrong. But it was enough. Across the galaxy, the feeds caught it, an alien ambassador and a human singing the same tune inside a battleship that could have destroyed them all. And for the first time that day, the crowd did not tremble in fear. They trembled in awe. The summit was no longer about threats. It was about a choice. Would the galaxy see humanity as monsters with weapons, or as people who carried both war and kindness in their hands? The answer had only begun to form, but one thing was already certain. History would never forget the day the Terran Battleship Decloaked. The plaza no longer roared with fear. It whispered with wonder. Billions across the galaxy stared at their screens. They had expected blood. Instead, they saw a human girl singing and an alien ambassador humming with her inside a Terran battleship. For the first time in hours, the admiral of the Andari fleet did not shout. He stood frozen, mandibles twitching, eyes fixed on the ship. He had wanted to fire. He had wanted to prove that humans could not be trusted. But the sight before him, so strange, so fragile, stole his words. Captain Mara Reyes did not smile. She did not bow or clap. She only stood with her arms behind her back, letting the silence work. She knew silence could be louder than weapons. The alien diplomat on the bed coughed, weak but alive. The human medics leaned in, scanning his lungs, their hands steady. Cameras caught everything, the white gloves stained with alien blood, the hiss of machines keeping him alive, the Terran officers moving quickly, carefully. No one watching could mistake this for conquest. It was something else. Something harder to name. Amina's song ended slowly, the last note trembling in the air. Her throat felt dry. She was not sure why she had sung at all. But now, looking at the crowd outside, she understood. They needed something beyond speeches and weapons. They needed proof that humans could choose care. Ambassador Lysar spoke then, his translator buzzing. His voice reached every corner of the plaza. "These humans are not what we thought," he said. "They show us war, yes. But also kindness. Both truths live in them. We must choose which truth we answer." His words rippled through the gathered crowds like waves. Some alien leaders whispered agreement. Others frowned, seeing only danger. The Andari admiral's hands curled into fists. He did not like the idea of trust. He only believed in control. He raised his voice at last. "Open displays of weapons break every law of the Council. Humanity hides its claws, then shows them at our feast. This is not peace. This is trickery." The crowd gasped. Drones shifted back into firing positions. The fragile peace was breaking again. But Mara stepped forward, her voice sharp. "No," she said. "This is honesty. We do not pretend weakness when we have strength. We do not wait for shadows to strike us first. We showed you our battleship because we would not lie to you. Because there was something dangerous hidden in orbit. Her words hit the crowd like a spark. Something dangerous? Whispers spread like fire. Reporters tapped their feeds. What danger? What shadow? The admiral snarled, his mandibles grinding. Lies. There is no threat here but you. Mara met his eyes. Her tone stayed calm, but the steel in it cut clean. Then check your long-range sensors. Ask yourself why our ship decloaked at this moment. We are not the only ones watching. The plaza erupted into chaos. Councils called their guards. Technicians scrambled with their scanners. And in orbit, beyond the great Terran battleship, something shifted. The feeds caught it live, another shadow, this one not human, sliding from the dark between moons. Its hull was jagged, covered in spines. No one had seen it before. No one had invited it. The Andari speaker gasped. Pirates, she whispered. Raiders from the void. But Mara's eyes stayed locked on the admiral. Not pirates. Hunters. They were waiting for your shields to drop. Andari ships lit their engines in panic. The admiral barked orders, too late. The jagged shadow fired. A beam of sickly green tore through the sky, slamming into an Andari frigate. The frigate's shields shattered. Fire spilled into the night. Screams tore through the plaza. The crowd broke into chaos again. But this time, all cameras turned not to the human battleship, but to the new enemy. Mara touched her comm. The Terran ship roared to life, engines burning. Its cannons extended again, but this time their aim was clear, not at the plaza, not at the council, but at the raiders. She spoke loud enough for every translator to carry her words. This is why we came armed. This is why we revealed our ship. Not to threaten you, but to shield you. The battleship fired. The sound was thunder. The recoil shook the plaza. Red light blazed across the sky, slamming into the jagged raider ship. Armor cracked. Spines shattered. The raider vessel howled into the void, spinning under the Terran assault. And for the first time, the galaxy saw humanity not as conquerors, but as defenders. Amina pressed her hands to her ears as the plaza trembled. She had never heard such noise. She looked at the medics, at Ambassador Lysar, at the alien diplomat still breathing under human care. The song had bought them a chance. Now the guns were keeping it. Outside, the admiral shouted new orders. Andari ships scrambled, rising to fight beside the humans. For a moment, two fleets that had distrusted each other stood as allies against a common enemy. The sky burned with battle. Cameras captured every moment. Viewers across the galaxy watched in awe as Terran firepower tore through the raiders. They had feared humanity's weapons. Now they blessed them. The battle did not last long. The raiders, surprised and outgunned, retreated into the dark. The Terran battleship pursued, driving them far from the system. Silence returned to the sky. When the battleship lowered itself again above the plaza, the silence that followed was not fear. It was respect. Captain Mara faced the council. Her voice was low, but every word struck clear. You see now. We are strong, yes. Strong enough to destroy. But also strong enough to protect. We will not kneel. We will not bow. But we will stand beside you if you let us. The Andari speaker, her eyes wide, lowered her staff to the ground. A gesture of deep respect. Then humanity, she said, we welcome you. Not as enemies. But as guardians. The plaza erupted, this time not in panic, but in thunderous applause. Humans stood taller. Amina felt tears in her eyes. For the first time in history, humanity had decloaked not to conquer, but to prove they belonged among the stars. And in the broadcasts, in the headlines, in the whispered stories that would spread across 1,000 worlds, one truth took root. The day the Terran Battleship Decloaked, the stars trembled, and then breathed easier. The plaza smelled of smoke and ozone. The sky above still glowed faintly where ships had burned. Yet for the first time since the Battleship Decloaked, there was no panic. There was only silence, deep and heavy, as the galaxy tried to understand what had just happened. The Terran battleship hovered, its engines low, weapons quiet. It did not boast. It did not press its advantage. It only stood watch, like a giant shield in the sky. On the ground, humans helped aliens to their feet. Medics carried wounded of both species into the open bay of the Terran ship. Cameras captured it all. For the first time, viewers saw Terran doctors bending over alien bodies, sealing wounds, sharing water, offering blankets. Amina stayed close to Ambassador Lysar. He leaned against her shoulder, still weak, but alive. His skin flickered with calm blue light now, no longer sharp red. He whispered, his translator buzzing. They feared you, but they needed you. Now they cannot deny it. Amina nodded, though her throat felt dry. She had not stopped shaking since the raiders attacked. But she understood what he meant. The galaxy had just watched humanity prove its worth not with words, but with action. The Andari speaker stepped forward, her robes scorched from falling ash. She lifted her staff, and her voice carried across the plaza. Today, the galaxy has witnessed a truth. Humanity is not weak. Humanity is not deceitful. Humanity is not our enemy. They are something new. The crowd murmured. The word new echoed. For many species, new meant danger. But for others, it meant hope. The Andari admiral, still bristling, could not let it rest. He slammed his clawed hand against his chest. They broke our laws. They brought hidden warships into our council. Can you not see the risk? Today they defended us, tomorrow they may turn those same guns on us. His words rippled through the crowd. Fear always spread faster than trust. Some ambassadors nodded. Others narrowed their eyes at the humans. The moment of peace was fragile again. Captain Mara Reyes stepped forward. Her voice was steady, her stance unshaken. We brought our ship because we knew what stalked these skies. We did not come to rule you. We came to stand beside you. But hear this, humanity will not beg for a place in your council. We will earn it. And we will not hide our strength to make you feel safe. The admiral sneered. Then you admit it? You came armed because you never trusted us. Mara's gaze hardened. Trust is not built by closing our eyes. It is built by standing ready, together. Her words struck deep. Reporters repeated them instantly. Feeds lit up with the line, trust is built by standing ready, together. It spread across systems faster than any weapon. The Andari speaker turned to the admiral. Her voice was quiet, but sharp. You saw the raiders. Without humanity, this plaza would be ash. Do not let pride blind you. Strength shown in defense is not betrayal, it is loyalty. The admiral's mandibles twitched. He wanted to argue, but the evidence hung in the sky above them. The battleship stood as silent proof. In the crowd, voices rose. Some shouted for humanity to be cast out. Others shouted for them to be welcomed. The plaza shook with argument. And above it all, the cameras fed every word, every gesture, to billions. Amina swallowed hard. She looked at Captain Mara, who stood calm in the storm. How could she be so steady? Amina felt like her heart would burst. Then Ambassador Lysar raised his hands. His skin glowed soft green, a color of unity. His translator hummed. Enough. I was struck down in this chaos. I could have been left to die. But a human carried me. A human sang to me. And their ship saved us all. If humanity is a threat, then let us ask, what greater threat awaits us if we refuse such allies? The words settled over the plaza like rain. No one could deny them. The speaker lowered her staff again. Her decision was clear. The council will convene. The question is no longer if humanity belongs here, but how. The crowd erupted again, this time with mixed cries of fear, anger, and hope. Some delegates stormed away. Others reached for human hands. Captain Mara nodded once, her face unreadable. She knew this was only the beginning. That night, while the plaza burned with arguments and negotiations, messages spread across the stars. On colony worlds, miners cheered when they saw humans stand tall beside the Andori. On wealthy core planets, rulers frowned, worried about Terran power. In the far reaches, raiders whispered of a new danger. For the first time, the galaxy had to redraw its maps. Humanity was no longer a rumor. No longer a shadow. They had stepped into the light. Inside the battleship, Amina sat by the alien diplomat she had carried. His breathing was steady now. She hummed the lullaby again, softer this time, just for him. He opened his eyes and reached out one trembling hand. She took it. For her, the galaxy's great politics felt far away. In that small moment, only one thing mattered: a life had been saved. And that was enough. Captain Mara watched from the doorway. She said nothing. But for the first time that day, her hard expression softened. Just a little. The battleship's engines hummed. Outside, the stars waited. Humanity's future was uncertain. Allies would come. Enemies would rise. But whatever came next, one truth was written into history. On the day the Terran Battleship Decloaked, the stars trembled, and the galaxy began to change. The council chamber was nothing like the open plaza. It was hidden deep inside the Andori spire, walled with crystal panels that shimmered with quiet blue light. Here, voices were hushed, yet every word carried the weight of entire civilizations. Ambassadors filled the curved seats that rose in tiers around the center floor. Their robes rustled, their claws tapped, their antennae twitched. They had been summoned for an emergency session, the first in nearly a century. At the center stood the Andori speaker. Her staff struck the floor once, and silence fell. Delegates of the council. You have seen what transpired today. Humanity defended us, but also broke our law. We must decide how to answer. The chamber stirred. The Andori admiral rose first, his voice sharp. They must be punished. If we allow a hidden warship to enter our skies without consequence, we invite every species to do the same. Terrans must be cast out. His words rippled, feeding fear. Several delegates nodded quickly. Fear was easy. It always was. But then Ambassador Lysar rose, weak but alive, supported by two aides. His skin flickered with determined green. Without the Terran ship, I would be dead. Without them, this chamber might not exist at all. You speak of punishment, Admiral, but I ask you, should we punish those who saved us? The room shifted again. Voices murmured. Some were uneasy, some hopeful. The speaker turned her gaze to Captain Mara Reyes, who stood alone at the floor's edge. Humans had no seats in the chamber yet. She was not an equal. But tonight, all eyes rested on her. Captain Reyes, the speaker said. You have heard the charge. What say you? Mara's jaw tightened. She looked at the tiers of alien leaders, at their doubt, their suspicion. She raised her chin. I say this: we did not come here to deceive. We came prepared, because we have seen what hunts the dark. You think today was an accident? It was not. The raiders knew of this summit. They came to strike at your unity. And if humanity had come unarmed, they would have succeeded. The admiral's mandibles clicked. And yet, Captain, your ship was cloaked. You hid it even from us. That is not the act of an ally. Mara's eyes hardened. Allies are tested in fire, Admiral. You have seen our fire. The question is not whether you trust us. The question is whether you deserve our trust. The chamber erupted. Voices rose in outrage. Some slammed their desks. Others stared in stunned silence. No one had ever spoken to the council like this. Amina, watching from the sidelines, felt her heart pound. She wanted to grab Mara's sleeve, to whisper caution. But she knew better. Mara's words were sharp, deliberate. She was not speaking to the council alone, she was speaking to every watcher across the stars. The speaker struck her staff again, and the chamber quieted. Her gaze lingered on Mara. Bold words, she said softly. But truth often is. Ambassador Lysar lifted his hands again. We cannot blind ourselves. The raiders were not random. They were armed, organized, ruthless. And if they dare strike here, at the heart of our unity, then greater storms are coming. Can any of us deny it? Humanity may not follow our rules. But today, they followed something greater. The Admiral hissed. And what is that? Power. No, Lysar said, his glow steady. Honor. The word struck differently. Honor was a rare thing in galactic politics. Many had forgotten it even mattered. Yet now it hung in the air, impossible to dismiss. The speaker let the silence stretch. Then she spoke. This council will vote. Not on punishment. Not on banishment. But on invitation. Shall humanity be offered a seat among us? The chamber froze. 1,000 breaths caught. The question was asked and history shifted. Delegates began to argue, some whispering, some shouting. Every faction saw a different future. The wealthy Threcian guild feared human competition. The quiet Lorian keepers whispered of Terran resilience. The militant Dravok clashed their armored fists, demanding humans be bound by strict military treaties if accepted. Through it all, Mara stood silent. Waiting. Watching. She knew this was out of her hands now. Humanity had shown their strength. The rest would come down to politics. At last, the speaker raised her staff once more. Delegates, you will cast your votes. Tomorrow, the galaxy shall know your choice. The session ended. Voices lingered, heated and restless, but the chamber emptied. Later, in a quiet corridor of the spire, Amina and Captain Mara walked together. The city outside flickered with light. Drones carried wreckage from the streets. Crowds still gathered, chanting some for humans, some against. Amina broke the silence first. You were, fearless in there. Mara's lips curved into the smallest hint of a smile. Fearless? No, I was terrified. But fear doesn't matter. What matters is what you do while feeling it. Amina stopped. Do you think they'll accept us? Mara looked out the window, toward the shadow of her battleship hanging in the sky. They don't have to accept us. They just have to understand we're not going away. Her words were quiet, but they carried a weight heavier than any weapon. That night, feeds across the galaxy burned with debate. On border colonies, Terran miners held watch parties, cheering when Mara's speech replayed. On wealthy trade worlds, merchants frowned, whispering about human ships competing in their markets. On raider outposts, warlords cursed. They knew the Terran shadow would now haunt their skies. And in hidden places, far from the eyes of the council, darker forces stirred. A message was sent, encrypted and fast. A voice whispered through static. The humans are here. They are stronger than expected. Move the fleets. The next strike must leave no survivors. The galaxy trembled again. The night before the council vote was not quiet. The corridors of the Andari spire hummed with tension. Guards patrolled with claws clicking against the polished floors. Sensors flickered, scanning for unauthorized movement. Humanity's presence had changed everything. Every shadow now seemed a threat. Captain Mara Reyes stood in the observation deck of the Terran Battleship. The lights of the plaza shimmered far below. She did not sleep. She did not relax. Her mind was a whirlwind of calculations, contingency plans, and what-ifs. One wrong move tomorrow could undo everything they had worked for. Amina approached quietly, carrying a small data pad. Her hands shook slightly. "Captain, some messages just came in." Mara did not turn immediately. Her eyes stayed fixed on the city below. "What kind of messages?" Amina hesitated. "Encrypted. From unknown fleets. They're calling it a strike. They're planning to attack during the vote." Mara's jaw tightened. "Figures. The galaxy doesn't like change." She turned then, her eyes cold, precise. "Are they close?" "Close enough," Amina said. "Sensors pick small fleets moving toward the system. They're testing defenses already." Mara exhaled. "Then we prepare." She walked to the tactical console, fingers flying over the controls. Schematics of the plaza, of council ships, of escape routes, scrolled across the screens. "We will not attack first. But we will be ready. And if anyone tries to harm the council, they will meet the Terran battleship." Amina swallowed. "Do you think they'll try?" Mara's gaze hardened. "Some will. Some always do. But we've already shown what humans are capable of. Now they'll see we can protect others, too." Elsewhere in the spire, shadows moved differently. In narrow hallways, a figure dressed in dark robes slipped past cameras and sensors. A blade, short and curved, glinted in their hand. They moved with precision, each step calculated. The target was clear: disrupt the vote. Remove humanity before it could gain influence. The raiders Mara had fought earlier were not finished. Secret agents, hired by factions opposed to Terran influence, had infiltrated the spire. They whispered among themselves, plotting a strike in the darkness, confident their technology and speed would give them victory. They did not expect the battleship to anticipate every move. Back on the deck, Mara reviewed every possible intrusion scenario. Her engineers worked tirelessly, updating shields, recalibrating sensors, programming drones to patrol corridors. Every hatch was sealed, every deck checked. She moved like a predator among her crew, calm and deliberate, projecting a quiet strength. Amina watched her and thought of the plaza, of the lullaby, of the alien diplomat she had carried into the ship. Humans were loud, messy, unpredictable, but they could also be precise. They could choose courage over fear. Mara turned to her. "Do you understand why we decloak?" Amina nodded. "To be seen. To be honest. To protect those who cannot protect themselves." Mara smiled faintly, the first warmth Amina had seen all day. "Exactly. And tomorrow, the galaxy will see it too." The night passed in tense silence. Shadows moved, but nothing broke through. The council members slept uneasily, unaware of the fleets lurking at the edges of the system. Outside, the stars spun endlessly, silent witnesses to the coming storm. At dawn, the plaza was alive again. Delegates gathered, guards on high alert. The Terran battleship loomed in orbit, shields up, engines humming softly. Mara stood on the observation deck, watching the plaza with calm eyes. Amina joined her. "They've arrived," she said. Small blips appeared on sensors, fleets from unknown systems, cloaked ships moving toward the spire. Mara's lips pressed into a thin line. "Then let them see the truth." She activated the intercom. Across the plaza, every camera, every screen, received her voice. "This is the Terran battleship. Any attempt to harm the council or its delegates will be met with force. You have one chance to withdraw." Silence fell. Then, slowly, a few of the intruding ships broke formation and retreated. Others paused, unsure. The council vote began. Delegates took their seats. Each hand raised, each antenna flicking, each eye narrowing was now measured against the knowledge of what humans could do. Amina watched Ambassador Lysar rise again, his skin pulsing green. The Terran fleet has protected us. They have shown restraint, yet readiness. Shall we not consider their place among us? The vote proceeded. Slowly, deliberately. Each delegate whispered to their neighbors. Every choice was weighed, every alliance reconsidered. Mara did not intervene. She had done enough. The galaxy now judged humanity on what they had already shown: courage, strength, and the willingness to protect others at great risk. Hours passed. Finally, the votes were tallied. The speaker rose, her voice ringing across the chamber. The vote is complete. Humanity shall be granted a seat in the council, with full rights and responsibilities. They have chosen honesty, strength, and protection. They are one of us. The chamber erupted. Cheers, whistles, and calls of approval filled the halls. Some delegates protested, others left in anger, but the majority acknowledged the new reality: humans had arrived, not as conquerors, but as equals. Mara allowed herself a small exhale. The weight of the day lifted slightly from her shoulders. She glanced at Amina, who smiled faintly, tears shining in her eyes. Outside, the plaza cheered. Humanity's banners fluttered in the light. Across the galaxy, millions watched live feeds, sharing comments and reactions. History was being written, and humans had inscribed their names with courage. But Mara knew this was only the beginning. Allies would have expectations. Enemies would plot. And somewhere, in the dark corners of space, the raiders and their patrons were already preparing the next move. Amina leaned against the rail. "Do you think they'll try again?" Mara looked out at the stars, calm and resolute. "Of course. But now, they know we are ready. And the galaxy will see humanity in a new light. Not just as warriors, but as guardians." The sun rose higher, bathing the plaza and the spire in golden light. Humanity had earned its place. The Terran battleship still floated above, silent and watchful, a symbol of both strength and restraint. And for the first time, the stars did not tremble in fear of humans. They trembled in awe. The council chambers had quieted, but the plaza below still buzzed. Banners fluttered in the early light, people cheered, and cameras captured every angle. For the first time in generations, humans were no longer outsiders. They had earned their seat among the galaxy's most powerful species. Captain Mara Reyes stood on the deck of the Terran battleship, her arms folded. Her eyes scanned the horizon, watching the glow of alien cities in the distance. Even now, celebrations were only surface deep. Mara knew better. The galaxy rarely celebrated without a hidden agenda. Allies might praise them today, but tomorrow, some would test them. Amina joined her, holding a small data pad. "You were incredible," she said softly. "They listened because of you." Mara shook her head. "No. They listened because of all of us. Humanity proved something today: strength and restraint together. That's what earned respect." Amina smiled faintly. "And the council?" Mara's eyes narrowed. "They've accepted us formally, yes. But a vote doesn't end politics. It just opens the doors for intrigue." Indeed, even as the celebrations continued, messages were buzzing across secure channels. Some factions sent congratulations laced with subtle warnings. Others sent thinly veiled threats, promising that Terran influence would not go unchallenged. Mara read them carefully. Each note was a test. Each test, if failed, could ignite conflict. In the heart of the plaza, Ambassador Lysar stepped onto a temporary stage. His translucent skin shimmered faint green, the color of cautious optimism. He raised his hands, and the crowd fell quiet. "Citizens of the galaxy," he said. His translator hummed. "Today, we have witnessed something remarkable. Humanity has entered our council not by force, not by deception, but by courage and honor. They have shown that they can protect us all. We are stronger with them among us." The crowd erupted in cheers again. Aliens of all shapes and sizes applauded. Some cheered for humans, others cheered for the council itself. Somewhere in the middle, Mara and her officers stood quietly, aware that praise could never replace vigilance. Amina watched Lysar and thought about how fragile trust could be. One mistake, one poorly chosen word, one misstep, could turn this moment into disaster. She glanced at Mara, who caught her gaze and gave a small nod. Meanwhile, in the shadows of the city, unseen by cameras and spectators, some factions were not celebrating. They gathered in private chambers, whispering. Screens displayed live feeds of the plaza, showing humans smiling, citizens cheering, banners waving. One figure spoke, low and gravelly. "The humans are dangerous. Not because of today, but because they think differently. They see threats where we see orders. They act when we hesitate." Another, taller and thin, hissed. "We cannot allow them to solidify power. They have a seat in the council, yes, but that seat can be challenged. And it must be challenged." The first figure's eyes glowed faint red. "Then we wait. Watch. And when the right moment comes, we strike." Amina felt a chill run down her spine when her secure feed caught fragments of their conversation. Mara noticed her unease immediately. "What is it?" Mara asked. "Encrypted transmissions," Amina replied. "Some groups are plotting. They see the humans' acceptance as a threat. They're coordinating fleets in secret." Mara's expression hardened. "I expected as much. The galaxy doesn't give gifts freely. But we are ready. They will not catch us off guard again." Back in the council chambers, the first formal sessions with humans present began. Mara and Ambassador Lysar attended, representing Terran interests. Every motion was carefully scrutinized. Every word measured. Some delegates tried to test the humans subtly. Proposals for trade agreements and security pacts were worded to expose weaknesses or provoke conflict. Mara listened carefully, her face unreadable. She did not react to provocations. She did not offer unnecessary explanations. Her presence alone, steady, calm, and unflinching, was a message. Humans were not easily intimidated. Amina took notes quietly, observing how humans and aliens interacted in council debates. She noticed small things: the tilt of a head, the flick of an antenna, the subtle color changes in Lysar's skin. All of it spoke volumes. And through it all, she realized that human adaptability might be their greatest strength. Later, Mara walked the council halls in private, speaking with allies who had supported their inclusion. Some were curious, others cautious, and a few outright skeptical. She offered no promises beyond honesty and transparency. Amina stayed close. "Do you think they'll trust us?" she asked. Mara smiled faintly. "Some already do. Others will learn. Trust is earned again and again. And we've only just begun." As night fell, the city lights glimmered like stars on the ground. Mara and Amina returned to the observation deck of the battleship. Below, the plaza was quiet now, emptied of crowds, but cameras continued to monitor. Suddenly, a faint signal appeared on the long-range sensors. A shadow fleet, smaller than the raiders but fast and precise, moved in the outskirts of the system. Their course suggested they were testing defenses. Mara's hands rested lightly on the console. "They're probing," she said. "Want to see if we react. Want to see if we hesitate." Amina's eyes widened. "Should we?" Mara shook her head. "Not yet. Let them come closer. We'll learn more from their movements than from firing first. Humans don't strike without reason. That is our advantage. The Shadow Fleet hesitated as sensors tracked them, unsure whether to continue. And in that pause, Mara allowed herself a small moment of satisfaction. Humanity had earned a seat in the Council today. Tomorrow, they would prove that seat was more than symbolic. Above the city, the stars spun silently, indifferent observers. But for Mara, Amina, and every Terran aboard the battleship, the galaxy was no longer a distant place. It was theirs to navigate. Carefully, boldly, and with eyes wide open. And somewhere in the dark, hidden threats waited, unaware that humanity was ready. The first Council mission was not ceremonial. It was a test, one that would prove whether humanity belonged among the stars or remained outsiders at the edges of galactic politics. Captain Mara Reyes stood on the bridge of the Terran battleship, eyes scanning the mission report. An uncharted system, far beyond the Andori's usual patrol routes, had reported strange energy readings. Ships sent to investigate had not returned. "This is a rescue mission," Mara said, her voice steady. "But it's also a test. The Council will be watching." Amina, standing beside her, swallowed nervously. "Are we ready for this? If something goes wrong?" Mara shook her head. "We don't fail. Not now. We show them who we are." The bridge crew worked with precision. Engineers hummed, adjusting shields, routing power to weapons and engines. Pilots ran simulations of asteroid fields and unknown energy storms. Every sensor flickered to life. The Terran battleship thrummed with readiness, a living machine poised to defend and protect. The system lay ahead, stars flickering in strange constellations. As they entered the outer rim, the sensors picked up debris, shattered vessels scattered across a dark nebula. Some were Andori ships. Others were smaller civilian craft. Amina gasped. "They didn't survive." Mara's jaw tightened. "Not all of them. But some might. That's why we're here." The battleship moved carefully into the debris field. Each step was deliberate, scanning for survivors and hidden threats. The nebula's energy readings flickered, interfering with communications. It was impossible to know who was friend or foe until they came closer. Then the first alarm rang. A ship had been spotted floating, barely alive. Its hull cracked, systems offline. Mara's hand went to the comms. "We're coming. Hold on." Medics prepared the rescue shuttles. Crew suited up. The Terran battleship lowered a protective shield around the drifting vessel as Mara maneuvered close. Every camera, every sensor, and every eye in the crew focused on the task. Inside the crippled ship, life signs were faint. Amina's heart raced. "There's someone in there. They're alive." Mara nodded. "Get a shuttle ready. We bring them aboard safely." The shuttles launched, slipping through the debris like shadows. Mara's eyes followed them as they reached the damaged vessel. The crew moved with careful precision, cutting through twisted metal, avoiding unstable power conduits. Finally, a figure emerged, a lone pilot, unconscious but alive. Amina rushed forward, heart in her throat, as the medics lifted the pilot onto a stretcher and brought them aboard. The Terran ship's medical bay was a flurry of activity. Machines hummed, scanning the survivor, stabilizing vitals. Slowly, consciousness returned. The pilot's eyes opened, wide with shock. "Human, you saved me," they whispered, voice trembling. Amina smiled softly. "We saved you. You're safe now." Mara watched from the doorway, expression unreadable. Rescue was one thing. Survival was another. Humanity had proven both. But as the crew began to clear debris and scan for more survivors, sensors picked up a new signal. Cloaked ships, fast-moving, approaching from the far edge of the nebula. "Pirates," Mara said immediately. "Or worse." The Terran battleship roared to life. Shields flared, engines powered up. Weapons unlocked, targeting systems humming. The approaching ship slowed only slightly, sensing the Terran presence. Mara tapped her COMM. All crew, stay calm. We protect the survivors. No one fires unless I give the order. The cloaked ships revealed themselves partially a jagged fleet, similar to the raiders they had encountered at the Council Summit. Mara's eyes narrowed. They followed us. They're testing humanity again. Amina gripped the railing. What do we do? Mara's lips pressed into a thin line. We do what we've always done. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. The battle was swift, precise, and devastating. Terran targeting systems lit up the nebula. Drones zipped between debris, intercepting weapons fire. Mara's crew moved with a discipline that amazed even seasoned council observers watching live feeds. Energy beams lanced through the fog of the nebula. Jagged ships twisted and spun, their weapons neutralized before they could strike. Mara's strategy was clear: disable, do not destroy unnecessarily. Show strength without cruelty. Amina watched in awe as the Terran fleet moved with grace and precision. She realized that this was more than power, it was control. Humans could unleash destruction, but they chose mercy when possible. In minutes, the cloaked ships were driven back. Several retreated into the nebula, their hulls scarred. Mara allowed them to leave alive, but warned. Humanity did not kill recklessly. Humanity demanded respect. The nebula fell silent. The rescued pilot looked around in disbelief. You fought them off. All of them. Mara's voice was calm, firm. We protect life. That is the Terran way. Remember it. The council watched every moment. Reports streamed back immediately. Humans were no longer just a new presence, they were capable, disciplined, and honorable. Their actions set a precedent. Power combined with restraint could shift the balance of the galaxy. Amina leaned against the rail, exhausted but thrilled. We did it. We really did it. Mara shook her head slightly. No. We survived. That is all. The galaxy will not stay quiet for long. Every faction, every fleet, every rival will watch us now. And every test will be harder than the last. Still, for the first time, Amina understood why humans inspired awe across the stars. It was not the ships, not the weapons, not the battles, it was the choices humans made when the stakes were highest. As the Terran battleship returned to orbit, survivors safely aboard, Mara allowed herself a moment to look at the stars. The galaxy was dangerous, yes, and politics were ruthless. But humanity had proven something undeniable: they could face the darkness and still choose to protect the light. And somewhere, far in the shadowed edges of space, other fleets waited, taking note. Humanity was no longer a rumor. They were no longer observers. They were now players, and anyone who underestimated them would pay the price. Above the nebula, the stars seemed to twinkle with quiet anticipation. The Terran battleship, silent and watchful, moved toward home. Humanity had survived its first test. But Mara knew the next one would be even greater. The council chambers buzzed with conversation long before the delegates arrived. Reports from the Nebula mission had already spread across every system. Humans had rescued the stranded pilot and repelled the cloaked raiders with precision, restraint, and discipline. That alone was enough to shift the perception of Terrans in the eyes of many, but it had also stirred fear. Captain Mara Reyes sat quietly in a corner of the council's observation gallery. Her eyes scanned the room, noting subtle changes in posture, the flicker of antennae, the twitch of claws. Some delegates whispered in agreement with the Terran actions. Others muttered darkly, calculating how to counter or manipulate humanity's influence. Amina stood beside her, notes in hand. "They're talking about forming alliances," she whispered. "Some want to follow our lead. Others are plotting against us." Mara didn't flinch. That's the galaxy. There's no neutrality, only alignment. Every action you take creates ripples. Some you control, some you don't. The first to speak was Ambassador Lysar. His skin glowed a steady green, the color of cautious optimism. The Terran battleship has proven its worth. They acted not for conquest, but for protection. They have shown restraint in battle, mercy to the weak, and courage in the face of danger. We have a choice, to embrace this strength as allies or ignore it at our peril. Applause rippled across several tiers. Allies inclined their heads. The Andori speaker gestured for calm. Then the Andori admiral rose, his mandibles clicking sharply. Respect does not erase protocol. The Terrans act as if rules do not apply to them. They decloaked without authorization, entered the nebula without permission, and engaged raiders who may have been protected by council treaties. Who is to say their next act will not be against us? A hush fell. Some delegates nodded, wary of the human presence. Others whispered in disbelief. Mara finally rose, her calm presence commanding attention. We do not act without reason. Every step we take is calculated. We do not kill unless forced. We do not destroy unless necessary. And we do not break the law without cause. Today, we saved lives the council could not protect. Tomorrow, we will continue to act the same way honestly, decisively, and with purpose. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Lysar nodded. Truth spoken. And yet, some will still fear it. The murmurs rose again. Some factions, especially those who relied on intimidation and secrecy, looked unsettled. Humanity had changed the equation. Outside the chambers, the political fallout began. Reports streamed in, traders from distant systems sent encrypted messages, eager to form trade agreements with the humans. Military advisors contacted Mara, offering access to hidden sectors, intelligence, and allies. But equally, veiled threats arrived, fleets in the shadows preparing, waiting for a moment to strike. Amina read one such transmission aloud in the quiet of the observation gallery. They're planning coordinated raids on human trade convoys. They want to test our defenses, see if our restraint will hold under fire. Mara's eyes narrowed. Then we prepare. Always prepared. And we do not strike first. That is how humans are respected, not feared. The first meeting of human-led alliances convened that evening. Mara, Lysar, and a few trusted delegates gathered in a secure chamber. Holographic maps of the galaxy flickered, showing potential allies and rival fleets. One representative, a sleek, insectoid species, leaned forward. We saw your actions in the nebula. Terrans act differently than any species I have known. Strength without cruelty, mercy without weakness. We wish to join your coalition. Mara nodded. Then join us. But understand, our decisions are made with responsibility. If you betray trust, you will be held accountable. Another delegate, a tall, reptilian figure, hissed. And what of those who do not trust you? The Admiral, the Dravok, the Raiders. What guarantee do we have that your restraint will survive a true test? Mara's eyes met theirs. Our restraint is a choice, not a weakness. When the galaxy tests us, we respond with clarity. Violence only when necessary. Protection always. You will see it firsthand. The reptilian figure remained silent, but their posture softened slightly. Even the most skeptical began to consider that humans were not the usual threat or the usual ally. Meanwhile, Amina worked quietly in the communications hub. She analyzed messages, decoded hidden signals, and monitored movements in the outer sectors. Slowly, a pattern emerged. Small fleets, previously thought inactive, were mobilizing. Some were raiders seeking revenge. Others were political enemies testing humanity's response time. This is bigger than we realized, Amina murmured to Mara. They're coordinating. If we're not careful, they could strike at our trade lines, our settlements, or even council members sympathetic to us. Mara's fingers hovered over the console. Then we must be 2 steps ahead. Watch, listen, anticipate. But remember, we do not provoke. We protect. That is how humanity will endure. Amina nodded. And they'll see that humans aren't just weapons, they're guardians. That night, Mara walked the observation deck alone. The stars stretched endlessly. Somewhere in the darkness, fleets moved, plotting. But she did not fear them. She had seen humanity's capacity for courage, for strategy, and for mercy. She had seen what humans could inspire, not just fear, but awe. Amina joined her silently. "Do you ever worry we'll make a mistake?" she asked. Mara's eyes did not leave the stars. "Every day. But humanity's strength is not in never failing. It's in how we respond when we do. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's moving forward anyway." Amina smiled faintly. "Then we'll survive this, and the next test." Mara allowed herself a small nod. "Yes. And the galaxy will remember it." Above, the stars shimmered. The nebula missions had proven humanity's worth. The Council had accepted them. Allies were forming. Enemies were watching. And somewhere, in the shadows of space, new threats were already taking shape. The galaxy was changing. And humanity, at last, had its place among the stars. The galaxy had grown quiet in the days following the nebula mission. But Mara knew better than to trust silence. In the far reaches of space, unseen fleets stirred, whispering of revenge and testing boundaries. Humanity had been accepted, yes, but acceptance did not mean safety. Captain Mara Reyes stood on the bridge of the Terran Battleship, her hands resting lightly on the railing. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, and the Council's signals flickered across her displays. Today, she would lead the first fully sanctioned joint operation, a demonstration of Terran resolve and reliability. Amina joined her silently. "Are you ready?" she asked. Mara turned, her eyes cold and steady. "We've been ready all along. Today, the galaxy sees humanity at its strongest." The mission was simple in concept but impossible in execution. A coalition fleet, led by humans and supported by several allied species, would intercept a band of raiders threatening to strike a vital trade corridor. The corridor ran through unstable space near a pulsar, perfect cover for ambushes, perfect danger for the unprepared. The Terran battleship moved into position first, scanning the sector for hidden signals. Sensors detected cloaked raiders immediately. They were faster than any previously encountered fleet, more cunning, and desperate. Mara's jaw tightened. "They've been planning this for months. But we'll show them humanity doesn't hesitate." The engagement began in silence. Ships moved like predators, weaving through asteroid belts, pulsar radiation flares illuminating the shadows. Mara's voice over the comms was calm, precise, commanding. "Shields up. Weapons ready. Maintain formation. Engage only when necessary." Amina watched the tactical displays, breath caught. The raiders attempted to flank the coalition, testing human coordination. But Mara anticipated every move, directing drones and allied ships with precision. Terran firepower struck quickly, neutralizing weapons before they could fire, disabling engines rather than destroying hulls. One raider vessel tried to ram an allied transport. Mara's finger flew to the console. "Intercept." A drone launched at incredible speed, slamming into the raider ship's bow. The collision redirected the vessel safely away from the transport, leaving the crew unharmed. The Council's monitors displayed the action live, and across the galaxy, millions watched in awe. The battle raged across the pulsar-lit corridor. Energy beams danced through asteroid fields. Raider ships twisted and spiraled, unable to breach Terran coordination. Mara's crew moved with flawless discipline, adapting instantly to every attack. Amina whispered, amazed, they're not just fighting. They're protecting. Mara did not respond. Her eyes tracked every blip, every movement. Humanity's strength lay not in overwhelming force, it lay in control, precision, and the choice to save lives rather than take them. A particularly massive raider vessel surged toward the coalition's center, weapons charging. Mara's calm voice cut through the tension. Divert shields to intercept. Target engines only. Do not fire on crew. The Terran ship moved like a living creature, weaving through the attack, firing non-lethal pulses to disable engines. The raider vessel spun uncontrollably, forced to retreat. Allied ships cheered silently over comms. Humanity had shown mercy and effectiveness at the same time. Finally, the last raider ships broke formation, fleeing into the void. Mara allowed the coalition fleet to track them but did not pursue excessively. The threat had been neutralized. Lives had been saved. The mission was complete. Amina let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. We did it. All of them, safe. Mara's lips curved into a rare smile. Yes. Today, the galaxy saw what humanity is capable of when we choose courage and control together. The Council watched, stunned. They had expected humans to dominate or destroy. Instead, they had witnessed skill, discipline, and restraint. Humanity had proven that power did not require cruelty. The aftermath was immediate. Communications across the galaxy celebrated Terran leadership. Allies pledged formal support. Traders offered unprecedented deals. Even some previously skeptical factions began private negotiations, seeking Terran assistance in defense and diplomacy. But Mara remained vigilant. Celebrations are fleeting, she told Amina. The galaxy respects strength, yes. But it also remembers grudges. Today's victory doesn't guarantee tomorrow's peace. Amina nodded, understanding. Humans had earned trust through action, but trust was fragile, ever tested by ambition and fear. That night, Mara walked the observation deck alone. Below, the stars gleamed like scattered gems, the nebula a faint shadow on the horizon. She thought of the journey from the first Council summit to this mission, the first contact, the Battleship Decloaking, the vote, the nebula rescue, and now this. Somewhere in the shadows, raiders plotted their return. Somewhere, rival councils whispered of limits to human power. Somewhere, the galaxy waited to see what humans would do next. Mara pressed a hand to the railing. Let them come, she murmured. We will be ready. A soft voice came behind her. Amina stepped close. Do you ever wonder if the galaxy will ever see humans as just humans? Not warriors, not guardians, not threats. Mara's gaze stayed on the stars. We are what we choose to be. Today, they saw guardians. Tomorrow, that will depend on us. Amina smiled faintly. Then the stars have changed forever. Mara allowed herself a small nod. Yes. And humanity will continue to shape that change. The Terran battleship rotated slowly above the galaxy, engines low, shields glowing softly. It had saved lives, proven strength, and inspired allies. Across the galaxy, transmissions repeated the story: humanity had arrived not as conquerors, not as shadows, but as something new, something powerful, and something worth respecting. And for the first time in recorded history, humans were not just participants in the galaxy's politics, they were shaping its future. Allies looked to them. Enemies watched them. And the stars themselves seemed to tremble, not in fear, but in awe. Captain Mara Reyes turned from the railing, her eyes cold, sharp, but calm. Humanity had survived its first trials. The galaxy had accepted them. And wherever the next challenge appeared, wherever the next threat waited in the dark, humans would stand ready not just to fight, but to protect, to lead, and to endure. The galaxy had changed. humanity had arrived. And the stars would never be the same.